15.3, members of council. This is 15.31, Councillor White, removal as X as a social media platform in HRM. Councillor White.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, we'll keep this brief. We're all tired, and I've read this motion. Well, I need to read it first. Sorry. Here we go. I move that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to write a staff report to determine the feasibility of removing X as a social media platform used by the Halifax Regional Municipality to distribute information to residents. The staff report should provide a timeline of when HRM will be off the social media platform X and provide alternate options to distribute information to residents, including looking at other social media platforms that we currently don't use.
Do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Steele. I saw her hand come up. Councillor, Laurie, have the floor.
Yeah, so reason for this, just seeing this platform go downhill over the years since the ownership changed. Less informative, less useful. One thing that some residents raised as this came to be in the public ear and eye is you can no longer look at the posts on this site without logging in with your personal information. So I thought that was important to note, that it's less accessible. And the reason for the timing is now is just the alignment of the owner of this platform with the current government in the U.S. and it's a government that is suggesting we become a state. So that's the reason for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cottle.
Thanks. I just want to say that Councillor White is bringing this motion forward, and it felt like there was a moment last week where a number of us were getting emails and calls from residents about this issue, and I know I contacted the CAO's office as well. And I think it's a valid point. I mean, a lot of people say that X is not a safe space. It's hostile. It's not what it used to be. So I look forward to seeing what some of the options are. And I mean, it's true though about any social media platform we use. I mean, they're all owned by tech billionaires in the States. We don't dive into the ethics of all of them. Some of them are more public than others, but it will be interesting to see, where do you draw the line, or do we actually look at our own platform? And we have Halifax Alert. Is that a tool that can be adapted and used for other forms of communication? What would it take to get people to sign up for that, to receive communication? I mean, maybe that becomes our official online communication tool. I'd be really interested in seeing what kind of homegrown or HRM owned options exist, and I don't know if that's beyond the scope of the motion, but if it's something that staff might consider when writing this report, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hartling.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you very much to Councillor White for bringing this forward. I think it's timely, I think it's important, and I think it is so great to finally get some emails in my inbox about what a great motion this is and how excited they are and that it comes forward. If I could say, and maybe this is just because it's my own personal wish list too, I feel like council and the way that we behave on social media is not it's at best loosely defined, and I would absolutely love to have some better language and rules about how we act in our position as a representative of the municipality. I know that I struggle with it, and I try to hold a line that I think is respectful and honest, and I do feel like that's a challenge. I feel like social media presents with challenges in terms of the dialogues that happen and the level of responsibility that the community thinks that we should commit to. So So yeah, if as part of that dialogue we could start to understand our roles and responsibility on social media, I think that would be great too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I apologize. I chuckled because you said it's nice to finally get a motion that people like versus the other ones they haven't liked so far.
Just to get so much positive feedback.
Understood. Thank you, Councillor Headsby.
Well, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I don't know if I can share the enthusiasm behind this motion, even though it may be more of a protest of Mr. Musk and everything else. Even Facebook has changed its fact-checking and its truth-telling and stuff. So it's kind of hard to tell which platform to use these days. I personally believe that we should still continue to use the X platform and make sure our information is factual. People can come to our Twitter page or X page and know that the information is truthful and not fictitious as some other pages may be, or fake news, whatever the case may be. But I think that I'm not one of these people that want to go out on the different platforms. I had a hard enough time with Facebook with having my page hijacked and stuff. I haven't had access to Facebook in 3 weeks. It's been crazy, or more. But anyway, it's just that. But having access to Twitter's been okay, and I don't want to go out to new platforms like LinkedIn's bad enough to try to keep up with some of that stuff. But the threads for Instagram and all that stuff, it's just too much out there. And I think that we should try to streamline ourselves regards to what platforms we do use. And I also like to think that perhaps we should revisit some of our social media policy for some of our local community organizations. Like, for instance, why couldn't the local community centers under municipal jurisdiction have their own Facebook pages? Because right now they're not allowed to have their own Facebook page. And for instance, if the North Preston Community Center or the Lake Echo Community Center or whatever, that have different management groups, they have their own Facebook page to promote themselves. So the ones that are community-owned, the municipally owned, volunteer-run, they have their own Facebook page. But if it's municipally owned, municipally operated, they can't have their own Facebook page. So I'm just kind of curious, could we perhaps allow some of our community-based organizations, or our community-based facilities under municipal management to have that flexibility? So I think it's something to look forward to. But as it stands now, I will not be supporting this motion to get off X.
Thank you, Councillor. After we break, I'll be curious to ask you why they kicked you off of Facebook. But anyhow, we may have to go into camera for that, so let's not bother. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'm not going to be able to support this either, not because I love X. I'm not even on it. Twitter, same. I actually don't like social media at all. My conviction is that as a municipality, I believe we are to be neutral and not do political moves like this. That's just my opinion. I feel like it's an information distribution area where residents use whatever it is. I mean, if the municipality wants to get off any social media platform and use another one because they think that's where the most people will be serviced, hey, no problem with that, as long as it's not a political statement. I think we have to just be sensitive about that. So this is not in favor of X or anything. I do not even have an account. I did get a Twitter account in 2020, but I don't even think I ever used it once. I just don't like social media. But anyway, so I won't be supporting this. So I think that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is a tough one. I've worked in communications for a long time, and social media kind of grew up around me, complete with tentacles and fur and nasty teeth. I mean, we've all seen what social media has the promise of being and what it is in practice. And unfortunately, those two things rarely align. And so I completely understand the sentiment here. I'm just curious whether we're risking a degree of tunnel vision in looking specifically at one platform rather than a broader analysis of what are the channels that we feel are the most effective and the most pragmatic in reaching out to our audience. I think Councillor Cuddle's suggestion of examining using the tools that we already use to communicate with our residents more broadly may be worth exploring. But the other challenge that we have, of course, is that we haven't established a critical mass with some of these platforms that we already use in order to reach out to our residents. And, you know, if the idea is always to ensure that we are able to reach our residents, then we have to do some hard work to get participation levels in the communications vehicles that we have at our disposal as high as possible before we make a whole hog switch. I realize that, you know, moving away from one platform might encourage a migration to other platforms. So there is no perfect answer here. I think that that's one of the reasons that I think it's worth staff really doing a hard examination of all the communication tools that we have at our disposal and looking at a strategy for how do we utilize the ones that we've got and how can we beef up some of the ones that we think might be useful in the longer term, like HFX alerts, to be able to ensure that we are reaching people where they are, whenever they are, and with the right information, and not, you know, scare the living Jesus out of them when they get hit with an alert that comes up on their phone. I think we need to moderate exactly how that message is received. Whether it's you know, categorizing the banners so that they understand, you know, what's urgent, what's not, what's in their district, what's not. There's a lot of different ways that we might look at that. And my concern with just targeting one specific channel and not doing a broader examination of the tools at our disposal, that's where I start to get a little bit concerned, because I wonder whether or not we may miss an opportunity to expand our reach by not doing a more complete examination and have that 30,000-foot view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, there may be a motion in the making there from what you just stated. You want to consider. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So it's funny. I don't know if anyone would say, let's get off X and let's get on Truth Social or Parler or Telegram. And so it's the bastion of right-wing wingnuts. So nor would we advertise with, you know, Frank Magazine if it still existed, or the National Enquirer. So I think there's merit in several things. Looking at the alignment of our municipal values with the values of the media we use as official information dissemination tools. And that's primarily what we're talking about. The municipality, in the accounts that we have with REC, the municipality generally, planning and development, we don't use them the way individuals would. We're not engaging and having conversations about the Super Bowl or Taylor Swift or Kelsey or any of those things. We're using them to say, there's an event happening. Fireworks are going to happen down here. There's a traffic incident. You've got all of that official communication that's going out. And so I have no problem with getting off X. In fact, I got off Twitter in April 2022 when Musk announced he was going to buy it, because I predicted this crap would happen. And I'll be honest with you, my mental health began improving immediately getting off of Twitter. And so I'm supportive of this motion, but to Councillor St. Amand and Councillor Cuddle, their points around thinking about how we actually communicate, and love him or hate him, Eric Rappaport teaches at the Dow Planning School, we've had many conversations around how we communicate, particularly how we get information from residents. He and I discussed, you know, being able to take pictures on your phone and upload it to an app of a car blocking, or usually a delivery truck blocking a bike lane, doing those sorts of things. And I've looked at many different app developers for municipalities around North America that actually develop these apps. People mention HFX Alerts. HFX Alert is not an app. It's actually, we use Everbridge, and that's the app. And if you go log into it and you get the alert, but that is a mass dissemination system for emergency alerts. So what I would love, and it's not part of this, but I think for our communication staff to actually think about a way we can engage with our residents on an app that would have things like the events that are happening in the municipality. When we're having planning changes in your area, having that kind of notification that you could set up, and if there's going to be something within your neighborhood, you could be alerted. The one big complaint I get from residents constantly, whether it was the center plan or as individual changes to land use or things like the HAF, I didn't know about that. And if we had an app, a municipal app, that allowed people to get that notifications and sign up for those kind of things, I don't know how many of you have the HFX Recycles app on your phone. You can see when your garbage day is, what goes where in your garbage, all those special recycling events that are happening. It is a fantastic app. I had an older gentleman up the street from me who complained that we had the wrong information in the Chronicle Herald this year for our, because they published the recycling and garbage collection for the year. And it was the wrong information. We had a week that was garbage and recycling, and it was in the winter, and we don't do that at the same time. And so anyway, I think it was the Herald who made the mistake, not us, because the information on our website was right. But you could get all of that information in one place. So I actually think this is a really great time to revisit how our municipality communicates with our residents, what information they want to get, how we can share it with them, and how we can best engage them. For anyone who's been around here a while, we know that engagement can be incredibly low and biased in almost anything we do. We miss enormous groups of people that we should be consulting with that never come out to anything and never give us their input. And then we have a ton of people who give us their opinion on everything we do. And so we really need to engage our residents more holistically, more granularly, and I think now is a great time to revisit that. Anyway, that's all to say I'm in support of this, but I'm also in support of eventually looking at a much larger communication strategy that others have referenced. And is there a better way to do that? Maybe we don't need social media at all. Maybe we could get everyone to download. It must have a 95% penetration of smartphones in the city. All those folks who can get information directly from us. And if the argument is, well, if people have a flip phone, if they have a flip phone, they're not on X anyway. Anyway, I'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hinch.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor White, I thank you for bringing this forward for so many reasons. And for me, on social media and things of that nature, it's just not working. It never has been working for me. I've tried to hire people to help me out here and it still ain't got nowheres. But anyways, if I had it my way, I would be off of everything as well. I would go back to the old way, the old whatever that is. Call me on the phone. I would be happy with that. I would be happy with that, to have a conversation with somebody. So yes, I will fully support this. Don't know how far it's going to go, but again, if we could get rid of it all, I would be so happy, so happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We do want to make you happy. So, Councillor Kent.
Okay, I'm getting tired, getting a little crazy, get sillier by the minute. But I'm going to here to tell you, I am one of those Canadians that wants to go through the television or my phone to get at our American cousins. Don't even know what to call them anymore. They used to be American friends. And all of the impact that they're pushing towards our country, right? The lies, all that. So I don't mind saying that out loud. I don't like it, and we need to stand up to it. We do as a collective. I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I don't mind sharing that with anybody. But it means at the same time, so I'm really glad you actually brought this forward, so we have a chance, and I have a chance to say that, to be frank. But this particular motion, I'm happy to support. It's a staff report. Anytime we get an opportunity to bring something new to staff, I think it's really healthy. It's been a while, I think, since we've seen any kind of review of this kind of considerations certainly the evidence-based concerns and the municipal values has to be at play now more than ever. The facts being shared now need to be at play more than ever, in my opinion. And I don't like X, Twitter, whatever it is. I don't like TikTok. But I have to use Facebook. I was one of those counselors and then an MLA who didn't even have a cell phone until I got I called it my Blueberry, but it was Blackberry. I swear to God, that's how late I was in the uptake of that kind of technology. So, but I have a concern around making sure we're not cutting off the people that we need to get our messages to. Facts are, I'm lucky I have a social media guru, my son, but I also have 3 sons who grew up on all of this technology. And they are looking, and residents of that generation are looking to these platforms for the information that we need to get them to get. I really like the idea of Councillor Cleary's app potential. I think that could be really helpful, and I think that if we do something like that, we need to make sure that we have a way to attract them to it. There are so many apps. I have so many apps I can't remember the passwords to most of them now. So we have to make it interesting, but that's just an example. We can have that debate another time. And right now, I think a lot of people have said what we need to say. As far as the Elon Musk and the people in the United States and the Trump administration in particular, really that's where a lot of this is originating. I still want to be very clear, and I hope that when the day comes that we really do have to make some tough decisions around our role in pushing back and defending our space, defending our rights. And I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying out loud what a lot of people are thinking. That it's time for us to wake up to what's happening down there and take measures here that we can take, but still serve the people we need to serve and protect the communities that we have at large now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I agree with the principle of this motion. I think the person that runs this app is evil, to say the least. However, I'm on this app myself, and I think it is a important communication tool. There is residents from District 15 on here that strictly are on this app and that strictly get information from here. We also have to remember that news articles cannot be shared on Facebook at the moment. So that is one of the only reasons why I think we should continue using this app. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm transitioning off of here to Blue Sky, which seems to be more aligned with our values. But I think this is a little bit too much government overreach to basically ban people from getting information from their counselors and from HRM. Yes, I know. Yes. Yep, totally understand. So I'm on the fence whether I'm going to support this or not. I mean, like I said, I agree with the principle of it, but I'm not sure this is the right time to move this forward. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy, and I'll support this motion from my colleague for a staff report for sure. I've been on Twitter, so back when it was Twitter, and since 2012, and I found it very informative. It was a great kind of place to gather feedback and opinions and be entertained too. It was generally the internet's always got some warts on it, but it was generally an okay place. Man, did it ever go downhill quick, right, with the purchase, and it's not the same space it was. And I think there's valid concerns from our community regarding that. And the clincher for me right now is the owner, right? Very public owner who's not just, another kind of megalomaniac billionaire, but is part and parcel of the presidency down in the States that very much wishes our country ill. Economically, whether it's annexing us, they do not have our best interests at heart in any kind of way. And leaving X to me is like, well, as officially as the municipality, that's a symbolic thing we can do, right? We're limited into what we can do, but that is something we can do. And I think that's what separates it. Like if this was, well, let's get off Facebook and every other social media, I don't know that I don't think I could go for that. But I think X is a particularly unique case in this moment in time in history of where we are. And we don't have to delete our accounts. We just stop using it, deactivate, and maybe in the future we reactivate it again, right? It's not necessarily the end, but I think for now it probably should be, but we'll see what comes back. And I think there's one other thing to consider, and I think Councillor Gillis's point about being able to share news stories is important. And I'm guilty of just doing this just now. We all relate to these because we use them in our daily lives. We all relate to these social media platforms from our own perspective. However, what we're really talking about is how the municipality is going to relate to that. So like the HRM, I don't think we generally share articles from CBC or anything. Generally, we're putting out our own content. It's one direction. We're not really, I know sometimes our operators do get involved in terms of like replying, but generally it's the exception. I know they're not equipped to be responding to all the Facebook comments or, tweets and everything else. So I think it's important to remember that piece, that we're really looking at this from the HRM perspective, not the way we would relate to it as individuals. And so I think that changes some of those considerations. So that's where I'm at. I think it's definitely worth a look.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I can support the motion to have a staff report to assess the feasibility. I think there's been some really good points made about some broader motions that we may need with respect to communications, but I can't see any issue with having a staff report and seeing what might be possible here. I've been a member of Twitter and X. I have migrated to Blue Sky, but I do look at X from time to time and find some interesting things there from time to time. But I know we're not talking about our personal use, but I also know that some residents use X for information from HRM. So I'd be very interested in kind of details of what that usage is, and I'm pretty sure our communications people would have all that tracking, and that would come back in the feasibility report. So I think we should relitigate this once they come back with the report rather than trying to make a decision today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One thing I'll note is that across our social media platforms, there are subtly different strategies that are employed that have in part to do with how they operate and what audience we have in each. But it's not like we're reposting exactly the same information across all our social media channels. So we potentially are missing out on our messaging a little bit if we're not consistent with what we're saying in each platform. Councillor Cleary, in his discussion, actually got me thinking creatively about some of the different ways that we might utilize technology going forward. I mean, for one thing, if we had the ability within an app to say, here is where I live, we geolocate ourselves, then on the basis of a radius around that geolocation, getting notices about plan applications that have come in or anything that relates to our specific geography that would be coming out from the municipality is a unique power of that kind of technology. So just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm mulling the potential for either a motion on its own or an amendment. And I'm really more thinking that it might have to be a motion on its own, even though there's a degree of overlap that unfortunately might result in a duplication of effort. But I wondered if the solicitor could weigh in on whether or not this would be construed as one versus the other. As I have it drafted, I'd be looking for a staff report to conduct a broad review to determine the most effective tools, social media platforms, apps, email systems, SaaS systems, HRM might use singularly or collectively to maximize reach and subject matter effectiveness of communications with residents.
Happy to respond. I think that's a new motion for a new day.
Okay.
If I could speak.
Madam CIO?
Just wanted to draw council's attention. I think we sent out a memo last week that indicates we're actually in the process of doing that right now, as part of an analysis of it got initiated as part of an analysis about whether to employ Blue Sky, and it had broadened out from that. So we are doing that right now. Never hurts to have a motion if you want to bring one forward in future, but if you don't, we are doing it anyway. So
yeah, I can certainly add that to a. Well, I'll come back at another time with a more full-throated motion that will speak to that, because I'm curious if what's in progress is as comprehensive as what I've laid out there. So I'll come back with that at a future date. Thank you.
Thank you, CIO. Thank you, Councillor, and Councillor Hartling for second time around.
I would just like to pick up on what Councillor Purdy said, because as much as I appreciate the sentiment, I don't agree. I feel like at this moment, X is entirely political. We aren't the ones who started it, like full stop. And I think that that's really important to call out. I can't open X at this moment and not get, absolutely bombarded about Donald Trump, and I did not ask to see that. It's 100% political, and there's no getting around that, right? So I just want to call that out. The other thing that I think is really important that at least we start to talk about when we have this dialogue is that there's a big difference between information sharing and communication. And I think for me, where I get the most frustrated and where I see the most challenge is that people treat our social media as a good means of communication. If you, tweet me or at me or whatever on X about the bus being late, that is not an actionable item for me. I can't take a screenshot of that and turn that into a 311. I feel like when people come after you for things that are municipally related on social media, that is severed from future action. And it's very, very, very challenging to get over that. So I think it's important that we think about information distribution, but I think it's equally important that we think of it as information distribution as opposed to communication, because I think that those are two very different things in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no names on the board. Call for the question. That motion carries. Councillor White, is that your first motion? Yeah, well done.